Sloppy Spoilers with your host, DT2. What's up, y'all? DT2 Comics Chat here, ready for another episode of Sloppy Spoilers. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Andor, Season 1, Episode 3. Now, the official title of the episode is, it doesn't have one, but I would subtitle the episode, Nobody Follows Orders. Because the most consistent thing about this episode is that nobody follows orders, but we're going to talk about that. Let me bring on my co-host. Welcome to David Nemesis Howard.
There I am. Hey, what's going on? Am I wrong? I thought episode 3 did have a subtitle, and I think it's completely appropriate, whether it does or not. I think
it's Reckoning. I'm sorry, it's Reckoning.
Yeah, and man, we talked about this last week, and not having seen this episode, man, we are the smartest people in the world. Because we said there was a reckoning coming, and good Lord, it was coming. Did it come already? So I can't wait to talk about it because, the people who got that reckoning, I'm never going to say that I'm happy that people get bad stuff happen to them, but they sure deserved it. I will say that. So.
Oh, I definitely have a character attitude reveal that's coming up. Welcome to Steve Shadewing Sellers.
Yeah, I would say nobody is obeying orders, but then again, this entire operation is the result of Captain Tool not obeying orders. So everything bad that happens is all on him because he was the one who started this whole thing.
Oh, we're definitely getting into some domino effects with this episode, no question. Welcome to Jeff, Mr. Happy Bracey.
Oh, the tool is strong with this one. Yes, indeed. Oh, a whole toolbox full of tools, like a Stanley toolbox full of tools. Oh, man.
Okay, so I was mistaken in my opening comments. It is indeed called Reckoning, which is apropos, but nobody follows orders.
Yeah, so, I will say that I am just fine with seeing fictional characters come to violence because, hey, we can enjoy that.
So I'll give you my initial thoughts and then I'll throw it out to my co-host. I have to tell you, all up until we meet Luthen, we met him last episode, all up until Luthen kind of gets involved in the action, precisely what I was thinking is that this is not really technically a Star Wars show. And I felt that until he connected more of the actions and emotions to fighting the Empire. But up until that point, I was like, it's a show set in the Star Wars universe, but you could take it out of that context and it's still the same show. And you could put it in another sci-fi universe and it's still the same show. But there are some things that did happen in this episode that did not make me care about Cassian, but made me care about how the story ends. And we'll talk about that with our writer's hats because there's something to your protagonist. So it's just tools everywhere. It's just Captain Tool, Tim Tool, it's tools everywhere. And tools dealing with, their reckoning as to what's going on. It was good to see in more detail the backstory of how Marva got involved in Cassian's life and kind of what that means on some level. But the most rooted and grounded Star Wars thing in this series so far are the droids. That's the most Star Warsy thing that's happening on a consistent basis. You could substitute out the blue cadre, the blue agents, the Tool gang, and make them be a part of any regime, and it's still the same story. That's what I mean about how this could pop right out of the Star Wars universe and still be the same story. So there needs to be some more things from my point of view that ground it in that universe, some of the signature licks. Now, I don't know. I haven't understood, and maybe my co-host can help me out. I don't know why strong branding has been relabeled by some as pandering. I don't understand that. I don't understand why solid storytelling has been relabeled as, trying to please fanboys or whatever. And I just am not with all that hatred because it's ridiculous. But it seems that some feel that way, and I'm like, no, you need to have something distinctly Star Wars. If you don't know anything about Star Wars, you should at least know that the sound design is one of the most distinctive parts of the lore. Star Wars sounds a certain way, and you need to have something like that to more rooted in the universe. Hear sounds that you wouldn't hear in any other story world, just off the top of my head. So all up until Luthen shows up, I felt disconnected from the Star Wars universe. When he shows up and he makes the emotional tie between all of the action we've seen so far and Kazan and where the story is going, then I said, okay, now I want to see what the end is going to be. But the last thing I'll say, then I'll throw it out to my co-host, is that this really feels like a segmented movie.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like a bunch of episodes. It feels like we've just hit a part in the movie where things picked up, and now it's worth watching how it ends, just like Rogue One, because that's exactly what happens in Rogue One. If you don't know anything about the backstory or the other characters or the other cameos, you have to watch at least 2/3 of the movie to get in any type of emotional investment as to what's happening on the screen. And there's, of course, big payoffs at the end. But this feels like that. Feels like, it should be one long extended movie. And if you're going to use the episodic format, even though, we're just doing it one at a time, but if you're going to use that format, each segment has to be a mini self-contained story into and of itself. So it's got to feed the larger narrative, but there's got to be setups and payoffs inside of each episode that make you want to continue to watch the other parts. And I'm just now feeling like we're even getting a hint of that type of writing and directing. So let me hear what my co-hosts think. Give me your initial thoughts about the episode. Start with Steve.
Yeah, I will say finally we start getting something interesting happening in this show, because for the last couple of episodes it's been like, okay, yeah, Cassian killed those guys. Yes, Captain Tool is annoying. Yeah, we like the droids, and like all these other characters are either annoying or forgettable or both. And that's really kind of been the way it's been. But I feel like this is kind of like where the meat of the story finally starts appearing, and it does come with Luthen. I was hoping that the arrival of Stellan Skarsgård would elevate the show, because that is an actor that elevates the roles he's been in. Harkonnen in Dune, for example. All kinds of other roles. But here, you kind of know that an actor like that, you're not going to waste an actor like that on a role that doesn't matter. At least not in this context. And so, I was hoping that we would get a good character out of him. And I would say we do. This guy actually comes across as somebody who knows what he's doing more than anybody I've seen in the show to date. Because compared to like Captain Tool and the Tool Brigade, I mean, there are those guys are comparatively amateurs, and you can tell that whatever Luthen is, and it's probably he's a revelation of some kind, is a pro. And this is a guy who is basically playing the mentor to Cassian. And
Yes,
so once you start seeing how that mentor-student relationship develops, you finally have a dynamic that's interesting, and you see something that drives the story, and it drives the action. Because while they're having this big firefight against the Tool Brigade, they're also getting to know each other. Neither of them really trust each other. Neither of them are really completely listening to each other. And so, you have this really interesting, bit of friction and dynamic, what is basically an Old West shootout. And so this episode, I feel like, is doing what shows like The Mandalorian do when they're doing it well, which is they're leaving aside the lightsabers and they're focusing on the Western style action. And that feels like Star Wars. But yeah, I mean, there are bits that I take issue with as well. I mean, and really these villains are very stupid, and yeah, nobody obeys orders, and they go off doing dumb things, and there are stupid stuff that the heroes do too. But for the most part, at least I was able to enjoy what was going on. As opposed to the last couple of episodes, which has been kind of like plotting and getting trend waiting to get to its point. I feel like now it's starting to get to the point. And I'm hoping that from here, once Cassian and Luthen go wherever it is they're going, we're actually going to find this, see what the point of the show is, beyond having Cassian just kind of run around.
Well, I'll segue then because I was going to bring it up later, but you gave me such a perfect setup. I'll segue then to putting on my writer's hat for a minute and talk about the main protagonist, and then I'll throw it to Nims and Jeff when we get it back. But you're supposed to make your protagonist the most interesting character in the mix. You're supposed to give your audience a reason to watch them, a reason to root for them, a reason to care. And that reason has to be that they're more interesting than everybody around them. They're the one to watch for a whole bunch of different reasons. But as we know, all stories don't pull that off. There are many times characters are introduced that steal the show, and then we have characters that make the show, and then we have characters that pull a Urkel and absolutely take over the show, and it becomes about them, and they were just literally supposed to be a one-off. And then such, proper casting or proper writing or that X factor that you can't ever explain that I know drives a lot of people crazy. It doesn't drive me crazy because I understand you can't codify all of life. But some people think you can. You can't codify X factors and chemistry and timing and all that. You can't control them forces and you can't make them do what you want them to do. Or else people would write hits all the time if you could. So I'm saying all that to say, Kazan is still not interesting to me. Still not interested. The story is interesting to me now, but he is not what's driving my desire to finish out what's going on. And so, as a writer, that's what I'm trying to work on. I'm always trying to work on making my main protagonist the most interesting person in the mix. It's not that everybody else can't be interesting, but they're the ones that are driving the action, and they're the ones that the audience have to attach to on some level, even if you hate them. And they're the ones that have to motivate the audience to want to finish out what's going on. And when that doesn't happen, you have more fun with the side characters and you have more fun with the elements of the world than the main character. And I think that's off in terms of a writing balance. So just want to throw that in there. You guys can comment on that definitely. Let me go to Nims, talk about your initial opinions, reactions, gut reactions to the episode.
Well, I think this episode built on some of the good stuff that came in right at the end of episode 2. So, I mean, that was promising in that sense. This was the first episode that really piqued my interest and said, all right, I need to watch episode 4. This is the first time that this series has done that for me, where I was like, okay, I need to watch the next episode because, I'm now invested. I want to see what's going on. The other thing I would say is that I think one of the problems that this series has is, going back to what you're talking about with your writing hat on, which is it really lacks structure. It's like it's very difficult to do this to write a one over the world epic in the sense of, with multiple characters and multiple plot lines and multiple, side things going on, AKA, Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, who's got so much stuff going on in so many different places. But still, even in that series, it is primarily focused on the Fellowship. And when they split up, it becomes very difficult to keep track of all that, and he has to split his time. But even then, it's focused on a limited subset of characters versus this one seems to be skipping here, there, and everywhere. And to a certain extent, I think this episode in particular was much tighter because most of it is taking place within the one city. Most of it is built around them trying to capture Cassian Andor and what Luthien is doing there. And so it's all tied together to that extent, and we can move forward together. So I think that's why there was a better cohesion in this episode. And I think the episode was better for it,
Yeah. But still feels like a movie that just heated up. So
absolutely. Absolutely.
We were definitely more excited. We talked about it before about the things we would have liked to have seen in the first 2 episodes just to propel what's going on. And another thing, both you and Steve touched on, I want to hit, and I'll throw it to Bracey, and that is Steve basically, everybody's, we call them the Keystone Cops, the 2 Brigade. Everybody's kind of bumbling, inexperienced. Like I said, nobody's following orders. So they're hitting the drumbeat hard of pre-A New Hope days, even though we're not that far from them. But the vibe is This is a young empire.
Mm.
And the other vibe is that this is a rustic, blue collar, hardworking city / planet. These are, salt of the earth kind of people who are there for each other, who work hard every day. That message is coming through loud and clear. And also the visuals, the metal everywhere, because you can taste the copper in the air when you watch Andor. And the way they, have an alarm system and all that. That part is really well done. I think they're communicating that part well. There's some other things that I think are just, but I'll get to those in a minute. Bracy, initial thoughts on the episode?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it a hat trick. I'm like everybody else. This is the first episode that really got me invested. And if this is the case, because we know the Book of Boba Fett was supposed to be a Boba Fett movie before they started dropping the ball with the movies, and they repurposed it into a series. This definitely feels like it should have been Rogue One, prequel. But the problem with that is movies have a 3-act structure, and so the beats aren't there. If so, the first 2 episodes were very flat, underwhelming, underdramatic, because you don't have the sort of setup that you have in a 3-act structure for a movie. Because if they've just taken this what they had as a movie and then just splice it up and we'll do a couple of pickup shots, that sort of thing, that can be really tricky to accomplish. And like the rest of you guys, now it's starting to feel more like an actual Star Wars film, and not just because of the action. It's because we're actually seeing some of the larger world now. It's not just references to the Empire. We get an agent of rebels. We start to understand more of these things going on, and there's nothing wrong with telling Star Wars stories outside of the typical Rebel, Empires, Sith, Jedi sort of thing. But it's like you said, before this point, it felt like generic sci-fi setting. And so if you'd have put this in just about any other sci-fi setting, like you could have easily put this in the Sci-Fi Channel's Defiance TV series, it would have felt like that, because they had this very rustic, very Western, very ruinous kind of scrapyard feel to things. It could have nicely set in the world of Battle Angel Alita, where they built a city on top of a scrapyard. Has that kind of feel to it, and the culture of the piece. But it's like you did say, there's a couple of things that are distinctly Star Wars in there. One is the sound design. When the fight breaks out, the blasters all sound like various Star Wars blasters I've heard, whether it's in movies or the video games I play. It's very distinctive. The presence of droids, and particularly Star Wars type droids. One of my favorite little aspects is when they had a droid whose whole job was to be stairs for the flying buses. And he came rolling in with one of those, droid notes. Pop, 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 pop. He rolls on up. And it's like, that's a very Star Wars noise. You know it when you hear it. And that really started to put me back into the world, because otherwise, unless we saw our little red trash can looking droid, it didn't necessarily feel like Star Wars.
Right.
And there are things that you have to like really make a thing live and breathe in the setting that you want it in. So now they're starting to fire on all cylinders a little bit. I was much more engaged with the story, much more engaged with the characters, even though Cassian is unfortunately not the most interesting character in the show, and he should be. His name is on the show. But yeah, it's all about Luthen, man. Stellan Skarsgård, like, now I want to see his story. I know he's going to be here to train up Cassian, and he is so cool to watch. But like, I'm into it now, and I'm glad they finally got there, because the way the first 2 episodes were structured, I was like, man, this is really iffy. To like, I'd rather not. Okay, now you've sold me. I'm in. Let's see what happens next.
That's right. That's right. So, we're going with it. We're gonna, finish out, because at least they've done that to hook us enough, like I said, to see what the end is going to be. Because we know what it's going to be, but we want to see how it develops. And that's the other thing. That's the weakness of a prequel format. You already know who survives. You already know what the next step is. You already know who can't die. So smart to introduce a bunch of characters that we don't know their fates, so we can have some real jeopardy and some real tension. And even though we know what it's going to look like on some level when it's done, the fun of a prequel is watching it unfold. How does it happen? because you'll never get those images of Anakin claiming the high ground and then getting sliced like some kibbles and bits and then being caught on fire and having to use his dark force power just to stay alive. And that's, you know, as long as you're scarred and the whole breathing thing, you never forget that. You knew what happened. You knew that was coming, but it was still so powerful to actually finally see it. And so everything that happens in a prequel sense, I would like that same level of intensity. Like, even if I know it's coming, make it look really good. Give me some type of payoff. So now the stupidity for me, however, starts right off when the episode starts, because Steve and I have talked about it quite often, and I tweet about it at least once a week. Nobody in a sci-fi movie has ever seen a sci-fi movie because this thing starts out with Lil Casa, little Ice Cube Casa, little bling bling Casa, little Bow Wow Casa, in an alien ship by himself with no communication, poking corpses with no mask on, with doors magically open. Now I just gave you every sci-fi trope to this alien, and he's just la 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 la. I'm like, so the redemption comes when Marva and her partner come in. At least they have the droid checking the composition of the air, then saying it's breathable. I'm like, okay, well, at least thank you for that. But still, this young boy, and then he starts going off and he starts bashing the equipment. He sees himself in the mirror and he's having a temper tantrum. And I'm saying to myself, dude, if you're angry, maybe go back to the village and tantrum out there. Maybe around this ship, this strange all this and all these dead bodies and all this, maybe that's not the place. And I don't understand why characters in sci-fi movies don't have no more sense than that. Because kids have more sense than that. Kids have more sense than that. If something is going down, they will try to look for mom and cry on the way to mom, but they don't stop running until they're safe in mom's arms or safe in dad's arms. See, so little kids got more sense than that. They say, I'm not just going to fall out in this strange environment. Let me find a parental unit or two. Then I can tantrum out. So as soon as I saw that, I'm like, okay, whatever. Everything that happens after this point, you deserve it. Boom. So then Marva comes in with her partner, whatever, and we see, her for some reason, she goes full Ripley and Newt on sight. That was another one that was like, they cut it out of the theatrical release, but when you look at Aliens, the director's cut, you find out that Ripley had lost her daughter in the 57 years she was in space, and her daughter basically just aged out and died. Bonus feature, the picture they used for Ripley's daughter, Amanda, is actually Sigourney Weaver's mother. So that was a nice little wink. And so Sigourney was furious when they cut that out of the theatrical release, because she said that's the character's whole motivation in the movie. So that's what makes her relationship with Newt make sense when she meets her, because she's already got that ache from having literally missed her entire daughter's life, and having seen the last time Ripley saw her, she was 11. Then she sees a picture of an old woman that was cremated. So, I mean, that's powerful. But when Marva sees, little Casa, little Bow Wow Casa, she's just like, no, we can't leave him. I'm like, why? Why can't you leave him? I was like the other, the other black dude. They're like, why can't we leave him? Why? Okay, he finna die, and if we stay here, we all finna die. What you talking about? That would have been my exact reaction. And she's like, no, and I won't, and the Empire's here. And he's like, that's the point. But she's like, oh, no, we got to take him. I'm like, yeah, okay. When Anakin and Count Dooku beat Obi-Wan so quickly, it made me laugh. Because they keep talking about how powerful Obi-Wan is. They fought the two of them for a minute. Dooku did a backflip, forced backflip on Obi-Wan, brought, a piece of the ship down on him, and he's out for the rest of the fight. But okay. So Anakin goes over to him and says his fate will be the same as ours. He wouldn't let the Emperor pressure him into leaving Obi-Wan because they had a relationship. What is Marva's relationship with Lil Bow Wow Casa? She just met him. What's the motivation for that? So we need to know, did she lose a son? Did she recently lose a child? Did she not have children? And she saw a chance to have one? What was that all about? Because she jeopardized her life and the whole mission for why? for some little dude that you didn't know how he's going to actually had to stun him to take him out, that kind of thing. And I'm like, what if he's like, a wild child? What if he comes in your house and he's doing the same thing you met him doing? He starts tearing stuff up. What you going to do then? Did you think that through? Do you have anything back at your home that's classified information, or do you have pets, or do you have anything that a wild child might hurt or eat? Did you think that through? Did you think about all that? No, you just saw him and said, I gotta save him.
What's going to keep him from running away?
Right.
Once you get him home, like,
Exactly. Jeff's exactly right. Are you going to chain him to your recliner? Is that the plan? So, I mean, I was just that whole scene. I was like, okay. So I get that it was necessary, but I don't feel like the episode set it up to make it make sense because, okay, I'll say this and then y'all can respond. I just want to say this well. If you are in a situation where you choose to override your instincts, there better be a very good reason. A good reason, for example, is if it has to do with like the life of your child or something, your child, not a child you just met. If your child's in trouble, then you pull out all the stops. And a whole lot of people have died with their children, but they died trying to save them, just like I forgot who it was, that flood that just happened. That man held his baby up to try to get her to survive, but they both drowned. So if you're going to override your survival instincts, there needs to be a good in-story reason showing why you're doing that, because that is more of the natural reaction of people, and that's more that will draw you in and make you feel like, if you have that moment where you have to decide what you're going to do, you have to have a reason to do it. But when there's no in-scene reason and you just meet some little kid tantruming out and that the Empire is coming in, you had to check the air to be sure it was breathable, and you don't know what kind of things are going on in the ship. You don't know if they're recording the whole thing. You don't know if there's a black box like on the airplane giving them telemetry and video. You don't know none of that. You just come into a situation, jeopardize everything you got for a child you just laid eyes on. I can't with that. So let me hear what you guys think about that. First scene, start with Bracy.
Yeah, I will say I do like the little details I'm seeing in the show. Checking for air quality, although I do think that was unnecessary since the airlock was already open and it would have been exposed to the atmosphere of the planet, which they walked in from. So, but it was kind of cool to see that. I like to see people thinking about things like that at the very least. I even like the moment of little Cass seeing his face, presumably for the first time ever. I don't understand his tantrum because I don't see why, if he's having guilt over his tribal leader.
I think he was scared of his reflection.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
When he saw his face in the reflection, is when he freaked out and started.
He touched his face first, like he's like, "Oh, this is what I look like," and then he starts breaking it. So
he started destroying everything.
That's not fear. I completely disagree. That is not fear. He is
not. I don't know that it's fear.
He is not putting. You're not putting a mirror in front of a cat or your dog for the first time, and they're wigging out.
But I think that's what they were trying to say.
They failed utterly, because if he saw his reflection, he started smashing stuff right away. But no, he touched his face. He recognized himself. He's got sapience. He gets it. I feel like it has to be a guilt response, even though they haven't appropriately given him guilt. If he was responsible for his chieftain getting hurt, then I can see him like, oh, yeah, you're the guy who screwed up, and I owe you this because I can't really punch myself effectively, so I'll break all my reflections. So I don't buy into that. But I did like the moment of recognition. So it just kind of makes you, again, like feel like, how long have these kids been on their own on this planet? Like, it's been a minute at least. And if it goes too much longer, it won't be long for these kids to start having kids of their own. But we're not going to get there, apparently, because they're all going to be slaughtered, and he's going to be taken off world, which leads us back to DT's point, which we needed maybe just a line or two of dialogue of, like, Marvel, like, maybe she had a kid who looked like him. And like Marvel stops and, and then her husband goes like, doesn't he look just like, yes, he does. even something like that, even something as vague as that, then we know, like, okay, there's something to build on here, something we'll find out about later. But I'm with you, DT. I was like, why are you wasting time? Like her husband's even like, he's got people on the planet. It's like, yeah, we can't leave him, but we will leave all his people to be slaughtered by the Imperials when they come. I have no conscience whatsoever about that. No conscience at all. She didn't have a problem leaving, whoever else is on the planet behind. I guess to her credit, she doesn't know it's all children, but that doesn't matter. I'm willing to kidnap your child, presuming that maybe you've got parents and siblings somewhere else, but I'm going to kidnap you to save you. And you'll just have to get over the fact that, everybody you knew and loved is dead. And now you'll never see him again. I'm taking you to a completely different world. Trust me, it's going to be better.
Okay,
Yeah,
now you just solidified. You solidified it. It was running around in my head, but you put words to it. This is why, because what you just said means that it's about her.
Yeah.
It's not actually about him. It's about
that's
her.
what it feels like. Yeah, because
Right.
because like I call him her husband because it does list him in the credits as having the last name Andor as well.
Okay.
So Marva and the other dude are apparently married. And they give their name to Cassian. But even he's going like this is a thing they've bound to have experienced as scrapper scavengers before. They've probably run across people who are dead and dying. It's like, that's the way of the universe, Jack. Too bad. And gone on their way. But like something about this magical child is too much for her, and she's got to take him along. And the present day stuff works for me, but like this little flashback into the past didn't work at all. It didn't make a lick of sense, and without the context to understand why she's willing to risk, because it's like you said, if you are going to risk your life, there has to be a reason why that's worth to you, and we don't know that. And I'm going to harp on this one more time because I really don't like this about him, chattering like a little monkey with no dialogue, and we've got to go through this whole rigmarole when I know what Jabba says, I know what Greedo says, I know what every other flippant alien that talks a language I don't understand in Star Wars says, but this human, I don't get to know what he's saying.
No, too much to ask.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's about her, and that already makes me dislike her. I was neutral, now I dislike you because, as your husband was saying, he's got people. You didn't care if you took him from his parents. You don't know anything about him. You didn't bother to investigate. You made a decision in the moment that's going to entirely change the course of his life, and that is about you, not him.
The past 2 nights in a row, every October, I make a habit of watching a horror movie every night for the entire month of October. And the past 2 nights, like the 30th and the 31st, the 2 movies I watched, one was Creature from the Black Lagoon, the other one was Rec 3, French horror film, zombie type film. Both of those movies had moments where characters got other people killed because it had to be about them and what they wanted. And they drug other people into their death throes because we've got to do this thing that I want to do. So it was like Marvel's doing the same thing right there. It's just lucky for the plot that it played out differently.
That's right. That's right. All right, Nims, what do you think about the opening scene with Lil Bow Wow and Miss Marva?
Cracked me up when you said Lil Bow
Wow. I'm going to put the story part aside and get to the actual construction scenes and the problems they have. I do think that it was his reflection. I think they're going for this whole Lord of the Fly things, this noble savage thing where he's never seen his reflection and it freaked him out. Like if you took his picture, it's like capturing his soul or something. But whatever they were doing, I don't think that it made any sense at all, especially for him to sit there and not only smash that one panel, but then start smashing the entire room. So that made no sense. That was one. Two, the other thing I want to say before I get into my real problem with this part of the episode is that it wasn't the Empire coming. She wasn't freaking out about the Empire coming. She said the Republic. She said a Republic ship was coming. If you go back and watch.
This is pre-Empire.
Okay.
Yeah, which is really weird because this, so I mean, there are all sorts of story questions that need to be answered when you start saying that, because it's like, who got shot down? Who shot them down? How did these scavengers show up within a couple hours to scavenge the ship? Why is the Republic ship coming? Why would the Republic kill everybody that was on this ship, including this kid, that you were so scared that you wanted to take the kid out of there? All of these things, these are huge questions that will never get answered, because I seriously doubt we're ever getting back to that. All of that said, and those are in-story problems I have with that. The biggest problem I have with this is that for the first 2 episodes of this series and this episode, not only the beginning, but the end, we have had these flashback scenes and this whole convoluted thing and the showing these kids and their society and everything, all for him to, spoiler, I'm skipping ahead a bit, to leave the planet and leave those kids behind, and it served no purpose. None. We have wasted a lot of time over 3 episodes for no purpose, because as far as I knew, you could have just put an old lady in there and told me that she had some relationship to Cassie, and I'd be like, okay, I'm good. Because that's basically what they've accomplished here. They haven't explained anything else. They haven't given us anything else. They haven't built these kids' stories out anymore. They haven't built her story out anymore. There's all sorts of questions I have that I'm fairly certain I'm never going to find out about why is the Republic coming in killing people? Who's this shit? I mean, all of this stuff. Let
me ask you a question. So, like, all this flashback stuff we've seen, it doesn't have any bearing on the character other than, like, he was vaguely looking for his sister in the very first episode.
That, so far in the first 3 episodes, that's all we've gotten. That and to give us a tie to Marva, which is implied. They're living in the same house. You could have just put him in the same house and said, good morning, Marva, and we got the exact same thing as the 25, 30 minutes of episodes that they've wasted on this. So you've wasted all of that time and made us all confused and frustrated about the jibber jabber that we don't understand and everything else for no reason. You
don't have time for your jibber jabber, fool.
Time on jibber jabber, hell boy. Ain't getting on my airplane.
Yeah, and that is my super big problem here. I mean, talk about undisciplined and unstructured. That's exactly what this is. Some producer should have been, look, if we're not going to move forward and do something with this, then cut it out and put some more meat on the bones of what our actual plot is going to be, and build that up, because you're just wasting time here. This is like masturbation.
I don't know. I wonder if this little Lord of the Flies segment is some producer's idea and it had to get stuck in.
Maybe.
Hey, wouldn't it be cool if?
Yeah. But at this point, I mean, and even like you said, the one thing that ties back into the real storyline, which was he was looking for his sister, feels like at this point a complete throwaway, because the character has not mentioned it since then. It's not important to him. He's been told to drop it by Marva, I think.
And she doesn't even show up in the flashback.
Yeah, she doesn't show up in the flashback, and it has absolutely zero bearing on anything that has gone on since then. It was mentioned within the first 2 minutes of the episode 1, and then has not come into play since. So you have wasted all of this time. And so that is my major problem with not only the beginning of this episode. So we're 3 episodes in. They said the beginning of the episode on that and the end of the episode on that.
And apparently these people don't understand the principle of Chekhov's gun. If you're going to bring something up that's important like that, it has to pay off.
Yeah. And at least at the one thing I can say about the end of the episode, and I know we're going to get there, is at least it had some tie-in with what was going on in adult Cassian's life.
Yeah.
That is its one redeeming feature. But was it so redeeming, so absolutely wonderful that we needed to spend 3 episodes worth leading up to it, 35 minutes? No, you could have just cut it right out. Like I said, and I'll say it again, pure masturbation. It was pure self-congratulating masturbation. So that's my thought. So
okay, well, now that we've all got that image in our minds, the one thing you're saying there that I want to key in on before I throw it to Steve is also a writing issue, and that is that establishing your main character's desire line. once you establish what it is that they want, like let's look at when that's done well. That's done well with Luke. From the moment we meet Luke Skywalker, we know that he knows that there's more to his life than tooling around with droids and being a Saiyan farmer, and he longs for that. Yoda even chastises him for that in Empire. Always looking to the stars, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. So we know from the moment we meet Luke, he's a dreamer. He knows there's a bigger destiny out there in life for him than the life that he's living. And we see how he gets to the point where he leaves Tatooine to pursue that destiny. And that's what I thought was going to happen with the sister thing. I'm like, okay, like you said it last week, Nibs, I think it was you talking about how this whole thing should be about how the Kazin we meet in Rogue One becomes that guy. And they teased us by saying it has something to do with his sister. So that was what I was expecting to see. And now it's like, we don't know nothing about her. And if y'all get back to her now, it's going to feel like an afterthought because the whole momentum has shifted away from that now. Steve, opening scene.
Yeah, I'll build on what you just said, DT, with the comparison with the first three episodes of another Star Wars show that did this much better, which is The Mandalorian. Okay, so a lot of these Star Wars shows, deal with found family and things like that. But when it came to The Mandalorian, that was how you did it right. Because you had the first episode that established our main character, what he wants, what his issue is. He's a guy who's just trying to make money, and all he can think about is, giving this money to his clan, so he can, rise, in his clan and, help their fortunes out, etc. And then he comes across this target and this kid, and he has no idea what to do with this kid. But then along the way back, he becomes, in the second episode, he becomes attached to the kid, and we see how and why Mando is attached to this kid. Why Din cares about Grogu as much as he does. And then you get to the third episode where he is forced to make a choice between the life that he wants and, the life that, he's being offered with this child. And then he makes that decision, and then he starts going against his desires because at that point he's attached to Grogu, so he's willing to throw away everything he earned from the Empire to go and save this kid, even if it might cost his own life. That's earned. We don't see any such thing with Marva and Cassian. Not at all. Not in the slightest bit. We don't see why she's attached to him. We don't see why he attaches himself to her. I mean, I don't even know why he's just going along with her at that point. None of this stuff makes any sense. And it goes back to the same problem that we've had for the last couple episodes, which is this show doesn't explain anything. If the transitions are poorly handled. For a while, I didn't even know that the early scenes we saw were flashbacks. That's how bad it was. Like, okay, Marva and this guy show up, and it's like, okay, is this happening now or is this happening back then? I had no clue. You only figure this out because you see it transitioning later, and you start to see, okay, this is where they are at that point. But this thing is handled so badly. And then, again, the problem is also that we don't know what Cassian is saying half the time, which could have been gotten around. Why? Because they have a droid. At least give them some protocol functions. You've got C-3PO. I miss C-3PO in this episode because he would have been able to tell me what the hell Cassian was saying. And I'm like, you don't even have a translator with you? How do you even understand? How can you even communicate with this kid? You have no way of knowing that. So it's like if it had been explained that the droid knew how to speak Kenari or at least translate Kenari, I would have said, okay, that makes some kind of sense. You're getting a little bit of communication and you're getting a little bit of a connection. But, you're basically getting these two, this woman basically saying, I'm going to adopt the crap out of you out of the blue. And it's now established because you don't get any kind of emotional connection and you have a language barrier that you don't even, think about, okay, how am I going to get past this? If you're going to adopt this kid, you should at least try to understand what he's saying or at least find a way to communicate with him. No. I'm just going to go and throw him in the back of my ship and we're just going to fly out and we're going to have a big, happy family now. And on top of that, it's like, the whole sister subplot was completely dropped. And what's worse is this is a wasted opportunity. Why? Because you could have had a big dramatic scene of him being separated from his sister, and having to watch her leave, having to watch her fade in the distance as he flies off in the clouds, and there's nothing shown about this. There's no emotional moment that makes you care about this. It again feels like it's an after. The whole big first part is an afterthought to set up, why Captain Tool and these guys are after him. It's so inelegantly handled. I can't even believe like how badly they have been botching these flashbacks. It's really, really unfortunate.
So inelegantly handled, needs to be a t-shirt. Somebody make that. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. When you have something that has at least been finessed to the point where it has some cohesive logic and you understand the character's motivation, because with the Mandalorian, it never comes off of that relationship. It becomes a Mando and Grogu show. So, but with this, which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about, by the way, in terms of the ties here. But I want to go in order. So next up, the contact is Luthen, and so he gets off of his transport with little George Costanza, and then he's on his way to, watch him run it. So he's on his way to meet his contact, and so Bix, has no chill. I think she thinks she's being, on the low, but I'm like, anybody can see what that is. But anyway, so she slides up to him, and do you trust him? Will he be there? Blah blah blah. All this going down, blah blah blah. And then she exits the situation. And once again, Luthen is interesting. We want to see what he's about. And then the soldiers touch down, and they're in a hurry, and they're going to Marva's to actually arrest Cassian. So they start, if we were watching Shawshank, that would be tossing sails. They start throwing everything up and looking things, and it's not to find him, it's to aggravate her and to break her to the point where she'll say something. And every time it looks like she throws out a riddle, which I thought was interesting. But then they get the droid. I'm like, wait now, did they just get a droid to have enough emotion, self-consciousness, and shame to feel bad? But before we get that flushed out, Cassian himself comes through, on the intercom, and he's giving himself away. Then they quickly triangulate his position, and then they're off to the races, and you leave two people here, whatever, and that whole thing. And I was like, okay. I knew as soon as that happened that, how can I put it? There was going to be this thing about how long it took them to get there, because they should have got there way faster. Even if they had some type of speed or anything like a speed or anything, whatever. But Captain Tool said, wait till we get there. I'm like, if you really wanted to catch him and you knew where he was, you send the fastest thing you've got available to you to go at least corner him, if not engage, at least corner him so he can't get away. If you have to have this ceremony, this pomp and circumstance for you showing up to actually, make the kill, make the catch, be the predator, rip out the spine. Is that what you want to do? So, once again, it's incompetence. And, and they know what he looks like, that kind of thing. So, so all that kind of is what it is. So let's talk about the actual next big scene, because that stuff kind of happened. And then I want to talk about what happened.
Can I add a point on that real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
I would counter and say that their big thing here is not incompetence. I don't think they're incompetent per se. I think that their major sin, their fatal flaw, is hubris, because they come in there with the idea that we're going to bring these backwater yokels to heel. When any real police officer would liaise with the local police to go ahead and handle it, because they don't know the ground. This
raises a big question I was going to ask. Who is actually in charge of this planet? Who runs anything? Who is the local official?
Supposedly they are, but
but we don't see it.
But they have not been doing their jobs. They let them do it themselves. So it's like, if you know that, then you come in there if you don't have hubris, you come in there and go to the people who are actually doing the job and go, look, we're looking for this guy. We need you to help us out. We need you to show us what to look out for, because they don't know the land. They don't know what everything's going on and everything. And then when things start happening later on, where it becomes apparent that this huge city of people is turning on them and all of their 12 guys that they brought in to pacify a city,
and 2 officers.
That's when you dip. That's when you're like, that's out. Peace. We gone. We'll come back.
I'm amazed that the locals didn't start shooting at them. I thought they were.
Yeah, but the minute you start hearing stuff like that, and then the one other thing I wanted to add on the scene that you brought up with the droid, I thought it was interesting because I got the impression that, and I'm thinking back, that the droid was reacting to the threat of unplugging his power supply as if that was going to erase his personality or something. And I could have been reading stuff into it, but I've never.
Yeah, he did act like that was a dreadful thing, but like the erasing of a droid's memory is actually an involved procedure.
Yeah,
from what I understand of Star Wars. Like so pulling off his battery pack like the B9 robot from Lost in Space should not erase his memory, but he acted like that's going to kill me.
However, I'm doing the work of the show here, and I freely admit it. There is this, you watching all the other Star Wars material, it is implied that for the good function of a droid, you need to erase their memory every so often. Otherwise, they start exhibiting glitches and personality like R2 does. Now, R2 doesn't become glitchy, but he's a very upbeat robot and everything else.
Yeah, they end up becoming autonomous.
Yeah, and so and it's implied that's why R2 is the way he is. And so you could kind of understand then that maybe the reason B2 is the way he is because it glitchy and everything else is because they've never, done that to him.
They never cleared his cache.
Yeah, exactly. They never restarted the computer.
We see how long he goes back with Cassian.
Yeah, they never hit Control-Alt-Delete. So, so that kind of makes sense. So that's kind of cool. But once again, I think I'm kind of doing the work of the show too. So,
well, 3PO and R2 have never once got on my nerves. 3PO is hilarious, and because he's a droid that's a hypochondriac, and R2 is hilarious. But B2 Emo, I'm like, really? I don't know what it was about him tricking at that thing that just got on my nerves. It just felt disingenuous is not the right word. Just too much emotion for a droid. If you have that kind of self-awareness, you're next level. You're like Data. You're not, whatever it is, the translator droid, whatever it is they've tried to pass you off is basically Marva's droid sidekick. You are way beyond that. If you've got expression, if you've got fear, if you've got apprehension, you got all that. Yeah, no, that's next level stuff. So I don't know. It felt disingenuous is not the right word. Maybe disconnected. It felt disconnected from how they presented his character so far.
I agree with that. I think that this is not your typical plucky droid or hypochondriac droid or even droid separatist like what's that droid Solo who annoys the hell out of me, but whatever her name was, I can't remember that.
So yeah,
L338.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's something I've always, and this is a whole nother tangent discussion, and you guys have probably always ironed out these issues for yourselves already. But that's always the thing with me and droids and me and artificial intelligence in general, because I have to suspend my disbelief to tie into the things we have to buy that droids can do, because they always make these human intuitive leaps. They're not based on logic or algorithm or facts. They're stuff you know in your gut and stuff that you put together in a very intuitive kind of way and not a cognitive, logical, kind of mathematical kind of way. So that always amazes me. But anyway, that's another conversation. So we get to the next level of toolage that I want to talk about, and that is that, Cassian betrays his own position, and we'll get back to the conversation that he has with Luthen, because that's really the heart of this episode. And I hazard a guess that it's really the heart of the show at this point. Everything we thought was going to be the heart of the show, I think his conversation with Luthen in that hangar is the heart of this whole series, to be honest. So we're going to do that in a second. But what I want to talk about now is a character that I have come to really despise, and that is Bix. Can't stand her. So she discovers through, Tim Toole's, golly gosh, I guess I'm busted because, I cannot tell a lie. You have caught me. Oh, that kind of thing. I'm like, dude, what are you, like 8? What are you, like cowering before your mama because she caught you stealing some cookies or something? That's what it looked like to me. Like, your mama caught you in the cookie jar, so you're like, oh, mom, I'm sorry. It's exactly, I'm like, you are a grown man that works every day, and you got that look on your face. So anyway, Tim Toole ain't my favorite, neither is his little girlfriend. So they're going through that whole thing, and I'm like, and she's just backing him up and staring him down, and he's just all, I'm like, but anyway, so she puts 2 and 2 together and figures out that he's the one that blew the whistle on Kazan even being there. And then she does the stupidest thing possible. She runs towards the danger. The blue troops figure that out immediately when they see her, that you ain't running home, so you must be running towards something, so what's up with you? Instantly, which tells me that Bix don't have no military or strategic sense.
You said she's got no cool.
Yeah, at least at that moment.
She doesn't know how to be like nonchalant at all.
Right. Because she telegraphed her position when she's meeting Luthen earlier, and she's obviously not understanding that they, that they, could suss out what she's doing, and then this right here happens. She gets hurt, and she gets held, and we think any moment, worse things could happen to her, and then here comes Tim Toole. And he's like, who did this to her? And he's freaking all out. And Black Blue Trooper's like, stay where you are. Stay where you are. Don't move. Get your hands where I can see them. And what does he do? He just charges ahead. Ah! He just does a suicide run. And I'm like, bruh. How'd you think that was going to end? Now, you do that if you're Steve Rogers. Now, you Steve Rogers, you do that. I give you that. You got your shield, you got your super soldier formula, you got your combat training, you got your combat experience. You can do that. You can do that. But you are not Captain America, dude. You're Captain Tim Toole. And you're just charging at these armed men. And I'm like, please tell me how that played out in your mind. Did you take them all down like Batman in a melee fight? Did you overpower them like Wonder Woman in a melee fight? You got the magic lasso, you gonna make them tell the truth? Did you disarm them? Did you get to her first and they let you get to her and y'all had a moment? How did that play out in your mind? What you think was gonna happen? And I'm like, I don't like neither one of y'all. Because both of y'all stupid as far as I'm concerned. But the level of Tutelage at that scene, and then he's sitting there, and of course, he has the open eye dead stare with the blood streak, and I'm saying to myself, and she's crying, you're a tear. And I'm like, did you really care about him? Was it really that serious? Did y'all really have a real relationship? Maybe you did, but I don't like you now, so now I'm biased. Because I'm like, you're just using him like you're using everybody else around you for whatever it is you want to do. You got your own agenda, okay, is what you feel like to me. But maybe that's just me. And so I'm watching that whole thing play out, and I'm just like, how did you think that was going to end? I couldn't believe it. I'm like, you couldn't have bided your time, or maybe make it look like they were going to arrest you so they didn't put cuffs on you. Maybe you put your hands up. Maybe you inch your way over there. Maybe you get a weapon. Maybe you get some more information about what they're doing. Maybe, you can figure out something that will help you save both of y'all. And maybe when some action is happening, which it does later, y'all can make a break for it. Like she tried to do, except she, once again, telegraphed her move. But I'm like, there's all different kinds of ways, had you thought it through, that maybe you could have made more of a difference than that, instead of dying needlessly for a woman that at best tolerates you. That at best your whole relationship is her trying to
Ouch.
her relationship is,
Tolerate you.
That at best, that's what she does.
Ooh, that was spicy right there.
At best, y'all whole relationship is her trying to pacify you long enough for you to not pay attention to what she's doing.
DT just chopped those things off and threw them over his shoulder.
Mhm. Like Luke's lightsaber. Boop.
Right. And everything about her is that I'm going to distract you with a little sex and make stuff up to you so you won't pay attention to all the other operations I got going on. And you too stupid to see you doing that right in your face. And then you're going to give your life for someone who thinks that little of you. You can't, if you can't tell, that pissed me off royally. I'm like, really? Really? Can we maybe have a backbone? Can we maybe find a spine? Can you write your mama and say, Mama, could you give me a spine? Just birth it out. I'll install it. I'll do like I'll go to Dr. Crusher and they'll give me a synthetic spine. So maybe I can be a man before I die.
Wow.
So, so anyway, let me hear what you think about the Tulich, the adventures of Tim Tulich, and then we'll get to Cassian and Luther.
I need to put my asbestos pajamas on real quick. Hold on. Jesus.
Y'all hear like I said something strange.
No, I'm just
saying.
No,
that was just a. I didn't realize we were going down to the 8th circle of hell. I thought we were going to be about the 3rd. Like you went deep. You went deep.
All right, I'll go after that.
Okay, go.
I have a little separate take. I'm not going to say that I like either one of them, but I will say that these two characters are kind of ridiculous. I don't think they're ridiculously written. I think that they make sense in who they are. I just think they're ridiculous as people. I think that Bix is the opposite version of Captain Tool. She is a little fish who thinks she is a much bigger fish than he is and can't handle swimming in the deep end of the pool. And so she is tangentially associated with whatever Luthien is associated with. And I've got my guesses on what he's associated with. I think we all pretty much have our guesses what he's associated with. But she is really not cut out for this. But she thinks it makes her a big deal. And she acts like it makes it a big deal and much bigger than she is. But really, the two people who are running this operation are those two dudes that were captured, at one point. And so she's lording that over. I think not only over Tim. I think she was lording that over Cassian as well, because she thinks that she's in on the secret of whatever's going on and all this other stuff, and it makes her feel important. But when we see her earlier in the episode, when it comes down to actually doing this stuff, Luthien is all calm and cool, man. It looks like he just got out of the shower. He's just walking. He's like, yeah, I don't have any calm in the world. Meanwhile, she's like walking around. She's pigging around with sweating and everything. She's looking over her shoulders and stuff. And Luthien's like, calm down. So like, Jesus, take some, smoke some weed or something. Do something because you are standing out. So
do some spice.
Yeah, she can't handle it. She can't handle any of this. And what you said, DT, is absolutely right. She gets Tim killed because Tim is a lovesick puppy dog. He's just running after her. He didn't matter what she could have run off to fight an AT-AT by herself, and he would have run in there with a dagger trying to take it out, because he's just Mr. Lovesick puppy dog. That's as much as he's thinking. And so she goes and she loses her cool and gets captured. And then he's sitting there yelling and everything. Nobody ever had to talk with him where he says, look, you got to put your hands up, talk quietly, don't make any big moves, offer your identification, say, sir, yes, sir, no, sir, I'm sorry, sir, I'll go on my way, sir. No, he's going to jump right in there and be, the male version of a Star Wars Karen. And he got shot down for it. So, it's like, I guess there was no Tim privilege. Tim privilege was out the window. He got shot down. So
no, he was just a tool.
He who pimps and walks away lives to pimp another day.
Exactly. So the puppy dog got put down hard, and they had no thoughts about it. And to his credit, the guy, the security officer who was detained Bix, when the other guy shot him, at least he slapped the dude and they told him to go back to the ship, because that was probably the best thing.
That was the only guy with
That
any sense in the entire scene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that felt really legit being part of a military organization before.
Yeah.
Like, he was like, you dumbass, we didn't come here to shoot up the populace.
Yeah. Not to mention, if you keep the guy there and people see the guy that shot them,
Damn right.
You're gonna have a riot on your hands. So
That's
it's
right,
like,
that's right.
if you're gonna deal with it, you deal with it later on, and that made sense. That guy he had a legitimate look of fear on his face, like we have just stepped in something, which is exactly what happens. Because once they saw Bix get killed and all that other stuff, that was it.
You mean
Those
Tim get
people,
killed.
yeah, they should have gotten the hell off the planet right then, because everything just went
Well, see,
straight to hell.
this is what I mean about turning off. See, because one thing you guys know that training is one thing, but basic human instinct is another. You get trained. You guys know how to respond in situations because you've been trained that way your whole life. But there's a basic part of being a human that would say we're in a situation on a planet where obviously the community has set up an alarm system and they're beating a pattern on all their metal or wooden instruments, and they're aware that we're here and they're letting each other know whatever that means. We don't know what that means, but common sense would tell you that what you just said is that, taking them out, just dropping them in the middle of the street, in the middle of a clearly hostile situation is not the thing to do.
I'll tell you, even with training, if that happened and I had all of 12 people plus 2 officers to deal with the whole city of people who hate me,
Right.
I would have been like, let's regroup and call in some more people to deal with this situation, because, we're not in a good spot here. So,
Unless you're Captain America in an elevator. Before we get started, does anybody want to get out? If you can't say that, maybe you need to get out. Okay, Bracy and Steve, anything else you want to add before we move to the big combo?
Yeah, I just want to generally get into how really stupid this whole attack is. They really should have gone in, a little bit more subtly, with the idea, okay, if you knew where he lived, it's like, okay, we're come to serve a warrant. He's a guy wanted for questioning. We're not going to, we're just kind of casually inquiring, because they don't know anything about the planet that they're going on. They don't know anything about the culture. They these people, just go and barge their way in because they think they have all the guns and they can do this.
It's
and
hubris.
and again, they should have liaised with whoever was there locally, to try to get an idea of what was going on. Maybe find people that knew Cassian on the ground. The kinds of things that you do if you're not a complete stupid tool like Captain Tool is. But instead they're going in with this show of force. This guy is trying to act like he's Inspector Reynaud from Casablanca. I have to put on a good show, to show the effectiveness of my regime. And what ends up happening is it's like they could have caused a massacre, a full-on massacre, is what this could have been. It still was a disaster.
I thought it was doing.
That's where I thought I was going to head too.
Yeah.
I thought they were gonna. I thought they were gonna get torn apart.
Yeah,
I thought they were going to get. I thought they were going to have a shootout in the streets with all the people that were living there, because these guys were opening fire on civilians and just generally muscling their way around. I mean, there's no way that they should put up with that if they're self-reliant, kind of Western style town like this is. That I just don't buy that nobody would have gone in there and started causing problems for them. That makes no sense. And the way that they went in there made no sense either.
I thought it was
and on top of that, though, everybody in the whole Bix Tim scene is a tool, except for the commanding officer who made the other guy go back to the ship. That was the only amount of sense that I saw, because here you have a situation where, okay, yeah, this girl's acting a little suspiciously, but you have no evidence. You have no evidence of anything. It's just that she's running off a little bit more, suspiciously, and she's acting a little strangely. But that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. The most you can do is just, okay, we'll just ask a couple of questions, and just let you go on your way. They've got nothing. Okay. But no, they make this whole deal of it. And then stupid Tim, the toolman, shows up, and the thing of it is that he could have resolved this situation if he had been clever. Like if he had just come up with an excuse for why she was acting the way that she was, if he'd been listening.
He's emotional.
No, he's not that clever. Somebody like I think even Cassian could have come up, with an alibi for her and gotten her out of there.
We were having a fight. We were having a fight. Yeah. She's upset. She was running away. Let me take my girlfriend home.
And something like that. Yeah, she's my girlfriend. We were fighting. She just didn't want to get in any trouble. Okay, that could have been explained.
You could have
it could have
maybe 2 brain cells like Tim don't have, and realize that once you identify yourself as connected to her, you give them more leverage.
Yeah.
So if you come on a situation and you don't act like you even know her, they have a better chance of letting you go, and then you could mount a rescue if you needed to, instead of both of y'all getting captured. But that's just me.
Yeah. So they're both done, and then So you have Tim the 2-man running straight at these people. What do you think that was going to? The thing is, I would be more satisfied with that death if it was a death that wasn't completely moronic. And it's just like, you're running at them blindly. I mean, it's basically asking for suicide by cop, and that cop actually gives it to him, and completely against. He had no orders whatsoever to shoot, no orders whatsoever to fire. I mean, and the guy just goes on and just shoots him in the face. I mean, he's clearly unarmed. Why do you do that? You have plenty of manpower to put him down without actually killing anybody. Stupid.
I will defend that to a certain extent. Not 100%. I'll give it 50%. They should have showed something fall behind him where he'd trip or something like that. But this is a situation where these guys probably aren't used to being in there. They're obviously feeling threatened because they're surrounded by a town that hates them. They're hearing the banging and all this other stuff. And then this guy comes at them. That said, just the guy coming at them shouldn't have made him shoot it. It should have been a loud bang or something like that. Then the guy reacts. Then it would have been 100%. So
I will also say in their defense, these guys are primed for violence. They've been told that they're going after a very dangerous person. 2 people already dead. Like you've all said, they're in a hostile environment. So they're already primed. They're primed for violence. And Tim, or stupid Tim, he's got complete tunnel vision. He's not seeing the guns. Because anybody with some common sense is like, oh, well, you don't run at people with guns. That's bad. But no, all he's looking at, he's just looking right at Bix. And I'm with you, DT. I hate Bix because what does she do? She starts crying and wailing and moaning because, I got Tim killed because I'm a dumbass because I wanted to play all these subversive little games because I think I'm, cool and I'm kind of a spy and I'm in the black market and I do all this stuff. And I'm like, I agree with Nim. She's a little bitty fish in a much bigger pond than she ever imagined, and she gets it all
no
wrong.
Question.
And I thought it was going to be like V for Vendetta. When that little girl got shot on the bridge and the neighbors all came out and dealt with that dude. I thought it was going to go down like that, but I did like the people's response. It was like, okay, and I think this is really smart. It shows that the people are much smarter than the police force. Now, the police force, I think they're like most cops. They've probably gone their entire careers without ever having to draw their weapon on anybody, much less fire it. They're used to having the badge and the gun, and the authority allows them, like the 2 idiots who got killed in the early part, to rough people up, to bully people, to do what they want to do with no consequences. So they are not ready for any real action. But I love it. Here's how smart the people are. They don't want the Empire coming down any more than the chief does. So what do they not do? They don't go in with blasters. You don't want to show that you had a big gunfight at the OK Corral between the populace and these idiots. No, what do? They put a wire on the ship and wreck the ship. That was friggin' genius. Oh, an accident. Maybe the stabilizer went out. They should really do some more maintenance on their spacecraft.
Yeah.
Love that.
I will say though that guy that took off was dumb. I mean, he was ordered to go to the pod. I was assuming to wait for everybody else to come in and then they would leave. No. He takes off for some reason.
He told him
why he does that.
He didn't tell him to get it up in the air.
Get air support.
He
didn't tell him to come in for air support.
Because
they knew trouble was coming down. But as soon as you're snagged on something, land the craft and find out what's going on, because you didn't crash off the first pull of that cable. He kept going until he did crash.
Yeah.
He totally went to panic mode.
And once again, the officer who slapped him and sent him there when he ordered him to do air support, that's another smart move. If he had been in command, it all might have worked out for him. I mean,
He's definitely a better leader than Captain Tool
So,
or Captain Tool Jr.
I don't hate the scene. I'm like Nim. I don't hate the scene. I hate the characters because we are clearly seeing there are some smart characters within the scene, and there are some dumb
smart character, and everybody else is an idiot.
That's right.
Also, I will say, Bix's tears seem disingenuous to me.
I told you, Tim is a tyrant.
They're not disingenuous. They're guilt. They're not love-struck tears. They're guilt tears because she knows this is her fault because she had to play her little games and she knew Tim was a big dumb puppy dog. Okay, yeah, this is the end result.
That's all about her. That's not how love works. If you care about him, that's different. That's all about her. That's all about me. But see, the other thing is with the setup of the show.
She'd have been screaming at him, "Stay back! Stay back! They'll shoot you, fool!"
I need to put the F around it and find out meme up on the
Well, see, the other thing.
That's the thing about it. You can count the smart characters in this episode on one hand, which is basically that one cop that was in charge in that scene, and then Luthien.
Yeah, it's not Cassian. I'll tell you that. So.
Right.
Don't forget Marva.
From the setup of the show, I'm also always wondering how far they're going to go with it. That's always the thing. And what I mean by that was, you guys said something. I think it was Nimsa said at the beginning about you wanted to counter their stupidity with a frame of hubris, that they think so little of the city and the planet they're invading that they're, peons. They're easily squashed. They're these rustic backwater people. They don't count. And then we're going to get into that in a minute because Luthien and Cassian talk about that too. But I thought it was going to be a situation where it was like Reva. They didn't care if they massacred them. They didn't care how many people they maimed. They were trying to establish a climate of fear and intimidation, and we're going to hurt some of you publicly for the express purpose of doing that, to show you how little we care about your little backwater world, to establish that, when we show up, you need to be afraid, that kind of thing. That's where I thought it was going to go.
I don't think they're competent enough to even get to that point.
Because even the cop who shot Tim, he took off his hat. He realized, like, oh man, I just killed somebody. I've never killed anybody before. Like, there's this. He's like, oh, what's going to happen to me now? There's like this anguish of dealing with the fact that you just killed somebody, and then how's that going to affect me? And he never even went back for his hat. Like when the dude slapped his hat off, he just left it behind.
He looked like a rookie quarterback that just threw an interception.
Yeah. He knew he screwed up. Even though he tried to play it off like, why can't I keep going? Like, fool, get out of here before you get us all killed.
So that's what I said. This whole episode is nobody following orders. Okay, so let's get to the main scene that was the coolest thing in this episode, the centerpiece of the episode, and so far as I'm concerned, the heart of the series. And that is Luthien and Cassian finally connecting in the weight room. And I really liked everything. Like you guys said, Luthien is a pro. He knows how to manage his facial expressions. He knows how to manage his eye expressions. He knows how to, rule number one, never carry a piece of tech you don't control. Rule number two, always plan your exit on your interest. That was the coolest thing ever.
Yes.
See, when
that was some Batman level stuff right there.
You took the words out of my mouth. When you start doing the Batman stuff, you got me then, because he's my favorite. And because you're thinking, you're steps ahead of everybody around you. And all the people that complain that Batman doesn't belong on the Justice League because he doesn't have any powers, but he can outthink all of them, which has been proven many, many times. And so we see that, and they're doing that. I don't trust you, I don't trust me, but there needs to be an alliance here. Why should there be? How do you know about me? And he's like, he didn't say boy, but boy was in his tone. It's like, boy, I know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's something that the old pup says to the young pup. Because it's something my father taught to me that way all the time. I heard a pastor friend of mine say one time, there's nothing a young crook can do with an old crook but wait till he dies. So you have that tone when you're the old crook in a situation. You're like, all them lies you telling, I told them 20 years ago. All them thoughts you thinking, I thought them 20 years ago. Everything you're going to do, I'm 5 steps ahead of you because you're a young boy, you're going to run and gun. That's all you know how to do. So you're going to give up your advantage of distance because you could have shot me from a distance, And once I've emotionally surged you up, now you're right in my face with the gun. And I'm gonna let you stay right there because I can snatch it at any moment. I can do any kind of move to disarm you because I have gotten you emotionally all riled up, because that's easy to do when you were the rookie. The senior guy, the old pup, the old lion with a gun to his head is cool the whole time. And then he says that incredible line, don't you want to take it to him for real?
Mm.
You're mad? You're mad at the blue troops? You're mad at this forming empire? You're mad at what's going on your planet? You're mad about everything that they might be doing right now to your mama? Don't you want to really hurt them? See, you're cool when you know you have a trump card or several. When you have some cards that you haven't shown yet, when everybody else is freaking all out, Luthen is just like, yeah, but see, I'm finna say something. I'm finna get in your head. I'm finna the Obi-Wan did the same thing to Luke. I'm finna speak to something deeper in you than your hot surface anger and wanting to lash out at me right now. I'm gonna go beneath that with surgical precision and strike at a different level of motivation to stop and make you think. And only someone seasoned and experienced would even know how to do everything that I'm saying. It was so cool. It was so cool just on the psychological dance level. But then we also get the added benefit of him having set up the charges and having calculated, because he's using spatial geometry, and he's having calculated what's in the room, the entrances and the exits, and what would happen in creating a domino effect or a chain event, pun intended, a chain event in terms of setting off the explosion and what that would do to all the hanging engines, hanging metal blocks, hanging, parts with the captors coming. And it was just so brilliantly done, and he never breaks a sweat. Never breaks a sweat. And then, on top of all that, Cassian thought the point was the box.
Yeah.
And Luthen whips out credits like you would whip out a winning poker hand. He's like, shh.
Yeah.
I got money. I don't know what you're talking about, son. I got this. I'll give you extra thou if you tell me how. And I was like, oh, this guy is so cool. That's so cool. And so he's just stringing him along, but he's got the pressure of, I need to get him on my side quickly because we're running out of time. I thought we'd have more time to dance this dance and play this game. That was my original plan. But now that I see that we have pursuers on our heels, I've got to bring this thing to a head quickly, which he did with masterful skill. Just, I can't rave about this scene enough. And that line, don't you want to take it to him for real? I think is what we're going to see from here on out.
Mm-hmm.
And we might have to abandon all hope, ye who want the sister. We might have to let that go, but that kind of thing. And with the mentorship you can have, and see that, once again, keying in on Nim's comment of hubris. That's the hubris of youth.
Yep.
You're an old man, you're past your prime, you're past your time, you can't tell me nothing, you're not relevant, you don't know me, you don't know my life. That's what people in their 20s say. It's amazing because it's almost always the same type of language. And Luthen is like, as a wise father figure, he's like, you don't know what I know. How you know what I know? How do you know what I'm attached to? How do you know the places I could take your life? But we don't have a lot of time. So you're going to have to trust me. You're going to have to make a choice. Shoot me or trust me. Okay? And again, that's someone that has the ultimate confidence. That's someone that's
funny you brought up the Batman thing, because looking at the two of them, you really can kind of see the parallels between Batman and Jason Todd.
Yeah.
With Cassie, I mean, I don't think
Cassie and I would not be surprised if Luthen was a master assassin.
Yeah, the improvisational hothead versus the master tactician.
Yeah. But the physics of a timed distraction is brilliant, because most people, when they cause a distraction, have the incident and then that's it. This guy was able to set up something that was going to keep going for a few minutes, where the metal blocks and the engine blocks and the wing blocks would keep falling and creating some type of shield to let them get away. so that the blue troops wouldn't have the clear shots at him, even though they did a couple of times. There was definitely real danger in the scene. But again, Cassian thought the point was the box. And Luthen's like, no, let it go. And so the language Luthen used was, he said, I may have been interested in the box, but I was also interested in something a little bit more. And once again, Cassian didn't seem to pick up on that you're the prize. How did you walk into an Imperial stronghold, an Imperial center, and just take that? How did you do that? You have to have something more going on to do that. And then Cassian does, like young boys do. He spilled all the beans. He's like, well, you just walk in. You just act like you belong there. You act like, you run the place. They won't even notice you. They don't even care. They think that they're so far above us. And in so doing, in opening his mouth that way, he opened his heart. For those that understand what I'm talking about, he opened his values. He opened what was important to him. And that's what Luthen needed. It's brilliant. I'm trying to tell you, this whole thing was brilliant. It's absolutely, with surgical precision, it was brilliant. And so
he probably is an expert in psyops.
Yeah, I mean, like, because you can see in his discussion, like, they don't care who's mopping their floors.
Right, that's right. That's
so
right.
they're even like setting up the disparity between the classes as far as like those who are in the Empire and those who aren't.
And the show hasn't made it clear yet who this guy is, who he's associated with. But it's something you want to see, because obviously this guy is he's obviously against the Empire, whatever that means. So I'm looking forward to it, and knowing where we end up at Rogue One, I think you could make a connection. But I think it's going to be cool. And this guy is amazing.
He just screams rebel assassin.
And this was also, because I think Nims mentioned it earlier, but this was also a better commercial for the Emperor than anything else we've seen, because now we're not going to get into politics, but we're going to get into principles. The Emperor took over because he felt like he knew what was better for everybody. He's power hungry, power mad. I know better than you. I can run this. I got this, and y'all just need to do what I'm telling you. Okay? And that attitude has cascaded down into everybody that's on the Empire side, or almost everybody. And that's the attitude we've been talking about all episode long about the blue troops. And so to see that disparity, the amount of hubris that it does take to assume that you know what's best for everybody else, and that your order is the order, and everybody just needs to get with your program. Because remember, Anakin feels the same way. Remember the Attack of the Clones. He and Padme were out there rolling around in the hay, falling in love, and he was talking about how, this universe needs order. And Padme was like, but what if everybody doesn't agree? Anakin's like, well, they should be made to. And she looks at him like, And so you can see that same type of thing going on here. Luthen is counting on it. He's counting on all of their assumptions. And we see that in their brilliant escape later, when we have the distraction of the dude that went and, like we were just talking about, took off and didn't jettison his cargo, didn't get untangled, just kept flying till he crashed. We got one distraction. And then we have an explosion distraction. And then we have a pre-programmed speeder coming out looking like a Batmobile prototype, and nobody's driving it. But just like when Batman drove the Batmobile into Ace Chemicals to blow that up, he wasn't in that. And so they weren't in that. Everybody's firing, and that's them, and they're getting away. And okay. And then we find out they're out of there on the speeder laughing because you fell for it. So the last thing I'm going to say, you can tell I love this scene just as much. You can tell I hate Bix and Tim Tool. That's how much I love this scene, because I don't have in between extreme. Okay, so I'm going to say this last little bit, and I'm going to throw it to my co-host.
How cool is that scene, though, where they were speeding across the rice paddies and stuff in the speeder? That was friggin' next level shot, man. It was amazing.
It was a good shot, and I like the detail of seeing the water fly up whenever they flew over the moist parts, and then it stopped whenever they hit the dry land. Nice attention to details.
So there's only two things I would have done differently. I agree with all that, by the way, what you guys just said. There's only two things I would have done differently. First thing I would have done differently, and you guys can definitely offer a counterpoint, is I would have killed the captain guy. I know they're doing good cop, bad cop. When Cassian sticks up behind him, puts a gun to him, and drop a communicator. He breaks it all. He's learning. He's learning. That was good.
Well, I like Luthen. Look, I'll kill him if you don't want to.
Right. He's like, I'll kill him.
There is no reason either of them would not have shot him. No,
Right,
there's no
right.
reason in the world not to shoot him.
Right.
And then it works
Right.
against him
Luthen-
later.
Lu- I
I
mean-
he tells them exactly where they went.
Well, Cassian's already proved he will kill you if it's necessary, whether you're armed or not.
Right.
Very first
So-
episode, he kills somebody because like, oh, you can finger me. I don't need that kind of heat.
So I would have milked him for information as much as possible and made him think I wasn't going to take him out, but no way he should be left alive, number one. Number two, and this is just nitpicky because it went by so fast, but I would not have gotten on the speeder with my face uncovered. I would have covered up some kind of way so that they couldn't even get a good look at maybe what I look like from the side. I would have given them no chance to, again, get any type of glimpse at either Luthen or Cassian, because them seeing them, the Blue Troops seeing them together and then them surviving to tell the tale.
Well, you see, I would have taken that a step further. The one problem that I had with that particular scene, other than like, there's no reason not to kill Captain Tool, when you've already proved to me that you'll kill somebody for potentially an even lesser reason,
Right.
it would have made the most tactical sense as you send the speeder out. They're shooting at the speeder. The speeder gets wrecked. They get close to the speeder. You set it off. Big explosion. Then you take off. Nobody's paying attention. You speeding out. They like just had a big explosion. People are dead. Their ears are ringing from it. They don't even notice you've taken off. There's no need for them to know. It just felt like this is for the plot. This is and it's in the plot to rub it in the face of Captain Tool more than anything else.
Yes.
And that's the only reason, because somebody as smart as Luthen, they would have blown it and then taken off at the same time.
Yeah, I don't think that was maybe hubris on their part, because I don't think that little bit of hubristic win was
Mhm.
enough to risk, again, facial exposure to people that are going to live to be able to identify you in the future. So those are the only two things. I would have shot him, and if I'm going to get away on the speeder, I would have had some type of helmet, shield, or even a bayonet, something to obscure my features, because Luthen does not need to be identified by anybody. He needs to be able to keep his cover, whatever that was before. They already know who Cassian is, so they're going to tell they got away. So now there's going to be some type of high alert for two of you. So that's just my thing. Okay, so I said a lot. So whatever else you guys want to say about that scene, I definitely want to hear it. Start with Steve.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything got covered as far as I'm concerned. I will say I love the bantering going back and forth between Cassian and Luthen as they're getting out. Because a lot of it is, you young whippersnapper, versus yeah, I know better than you, and as you say, Cassian does end up learning after a while, a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to destroy the guy's comlink. I wish he'd learned enough to kill them. I mean, and it seems like at one point even Luthen's even like taunting him to say, "Oh, I'll kill him," and I'm just like, "Why don't you? why are you not doing it?" It's like, there's no reason to leave him alive. So that was the biggest thing that bugged me out of the whole scene. But I mean, everything else was really kind of exciting. I will say that they did already kind of know that they had Cassian had somebody running around with them, because there were reports about that going back to Captain Tool in the middle of the firefight. But they didn't know who it was. They couldn't have identified him. I think the main person that would have needed to hide his face would have been Luthen. I mean, they know what Cassian looks like. They know he's heading out. they know he's escaping. So it's like, yeah, that's the main issue with that. But I did love the misdirect with the speeder. Yeah, they should not have rubbed it in their faces. In fact, probably what should have happened was, there are no signs of any bodies here, sir. And then, maybe they kind of see like a cloud of dust going off, as they're zooming off in the other direction, and they can't make anything out. That would have been a little bit better. But for the most part, yeah, that would have been fine. It's just, but I mean, it just goes back to, why is Captain Tool being such a tool in the first place, going out there by himself, and then he gets taken down like an amateur. It was just, I mean, they're not doing a really good job of building up these villains, and that's really kind of the issue. This whole episode is really showing, how much better Luthen is than all of these people who are Keystone cops that went in not knowing what they were doing, and they ended up getting into complete trouble for it. But I mean, the ecstatic in the end, it's like I don't really see what Captain Tool is going to have a hard time justifying this operation when he gets back to Morlana, because it's like, okay, you disobeyed direct orders, just being out there. You're disobeying direct orders as well, and then you're starting a firefight out there because you were inelegant about the way that you went in there. You were arrogant, and you went in there, essentially with a show of force. When you didn't have to do that. You were inept in handling the locals. You killed a dude. You got a bunch of your own men killed. For a mission that ends up completely failing. And honestly, I'm not even 100% convinced that Cassian couldn't have gotten away from that without Luthien. It just would have been a lot harder. So, this whole thing is a failure, and it wasn't even a legal operation. And on top of that, it ended up being such a big enough embarrassment that it's going to end up causing problems with the Empire. So, I mean, I really, really, really think that these corporates in Morlana are going to be in a lot of trouble because of the fallout of this. And it's all on Captain Tool for being a really bad leader, for, disobeying orders for no reason. And as you say, everybody disobeys orders. Nobody's disciplined. Nobody's doing what they should be doing, except for that one guy. That one guy gets a medal. Everybody else really should be facing charges. And it's just, it's a complete mess. But I will say, as an establishing, scene for Luthien and for Cassian and for their dynamic being together, it works for the most part really, really well. It's just that once again, the villains come out of this looking ridiculous.
Yes, they do. Bracy, additional thoughts?
Yeah, I do like the old man, the young man sort of scenario. I think perhaps one of the most interesting times I've ever seen that done was in Looper, with old Bruce Willis versus young Bruce Willis, and they're having that conversation about, like, why don't you just be an old man and die? It's like, well, why don't you shut up and learn something, boy? That sort of
How
thing.
How about June and Remo? There's another one.
Yeah. But I like that particularly because that's supposed to be a character in the future talking to himself in the past. So I find that even more interesting when a character is the old man and then he's looking at his young, dumb self, that kind of thing. So, yeah, we've seen that sort of thing time and time again. And so that's always a fun interplay. I will defend Sergeant Tool because I don't think he's incompetent, and he does obey orders, even when it's not in his best interest. When Captain Tool wants to lay out a kill zone, or he's what are we going to do? He doesn't even think about creating a kill box. Sergeant Tool thinks about creating a kill box and setting up an ambush, so he's doing it right. And there's nothing wrong with spreading out to create the kill box. Captain Tool had no idea that they weren't going to come straight up the middle. Again, this goes to a lack of experience. So he's not a good commander, and I do like watching him realize that my grand, glorious upholding the law thing that I live by. I live by this law, even if I kind of got to break orders to uphold the law. And he sees it all fall apart. He sees all the bodies. He's thinking about oh man, the chief's going to have me. All this stuff is going to happen. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen to him, because not only has he lost men, he's lost a valuable piece of equipment, in that he's lost an entire ship. And so that's a major thing. I doubt he can afford that on his salary. And how's that going to fall out? And how is he going to continue to be an effective villain for the piece, if at all? Or is this going to be the end of his story? So I'm curious to see what they're going to do with him, because, again, we've expressed that these two characters have a potentiality in them to be a credible threat together. Because we've seen how, when they separate, it doesn't work out so well. The sergeant needs somebody to give him the authority to cut loose the way he wants to. Mm-hmm. And the captain obviously needs some muscle to enforce his recipient little will. So that's all well and good. And of course, I've got to say the hanging engines was one of the coolest set pieces I've seen in a movie, and the choreography of the entire scene, the structure of it, the firefight, and going so far as not even initially setting up the swinging, but Luthien is checking out the options, and he's blasting more chains loose to set up more chain reactions. Absolutely love it. And we do also get a taste that even though Cassian's in over his head here, we do see with the speeder that he's still got good improvisational instincts. How many more explosives do you have? So we
Yes.
still get some value out of him. We see his potential here. So all in all, terrific scene, a hard scene, best part of the show.
Cool.
Cool. Nims.
Yeah, you guys hit on most of it. I'm gonna go back to the blue guys again a little bit. I don't know that. I think I agree with Jeff that they're inexperienced. I'm also going to say that they're somewhat incompetent, at least in this. They are glorified corpo rent-a-cops, used to dealing with drunk miners on a corpo town, on a corpo planet, you know. And then they're put into this situation where what was called for here were stormtroopers.
Yeah.
You know, people that know that once the shit hits a fan, the first thing you do is you fan out. The second thing you do is establish a perimeter. The third thing you do is establish community. You know, there's a whole checklist of things you do by just knowing your training. And they're not trained for this at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they cannot deal with this situation. And then the second problem here, and this is where I'll push back a little bit. I agree that Captain Tool Jr. knows his textbook tactics, but he doesn't know how to be an NCO in a combat situation and deal with it, because the minute that LT, he kept going to the LT or whatever that guy's, I think he was an LT, a lieutenant, and asking him for orders.
We've just gotten used to calling him Captain Tool.
Yeah, but if he's going to freeze up, an NCO is just going to push you out of the way and take command and save his troops.
I mean, essentially he did. He just ends up grabbing him and yanking him because he's like, we've got to get out of Dodge now.
Eventually he did, yeah. But if I was an NCO, the minute that guy was just sitting there with his thumb up his ass, excuse my language, I would have been like, you're done. Just
step aside, Lieutenant Gorman.
Yeah,
Vasquez is taking over.
Exactly. I'd be like, you sit there and look stupid, and I'm going to deal with the situation here. So, but they were outmatched always, because this is not what they're trained for. They're trained to, get a drunk miner out of a bar and home, break up a dispute between a prostitute and a miner, do, some petty theft stuff, things like that. And that's why Captain Tool was got his panties in a bunch, because now he's got a murder to solve. There's no murders on the corporate town, and now he's going to be the deliverer of justice because he thinks he's Mr.
I am the law.
Yeah, exactly.
He's Judge Dredd.
Yeah, he's Judge Tool. So this guy, so they're all completely out of their depth, and they really have no idea what they are dealing with here. And honestly, I don't see that they have much future in this series, to be honest with you, because they were outmatched by Cassian and this little group of people on this planet. And we've already said that Bix is really not, that's not a great situation. Then you add Luthien to it, he's not going to be able to deal with that. I think the Empire is going to, I agree with all of what you said, is that they have just got the attention of the big fish. The piranha, the barracuda is going to come in and is going to gobble them up, so I don't think it's going to be pretty either.
Yeah, that pond's about to get crowded.
Yeah. It's like they were the little miniature, guppy, or whatever it was, those little Siamese fighting fish, thinking they're badass, going around eating and chewing on some people.
A beta fish for a beta male.
Yeah, the beta fish there. And then suddenly the barracuda is going to show up and show them who's boss, so...
Yeah, I'm hoping that in the next episode we finally get a real Imperial villain who you can take seriously and knows what the hell he's doing. Because right now they need somebody who can go toe to toe with Luthen.
Yeah, we need a Werner Herzog or a Giancarlo.
Or a Thrawn.
A villain with competence and presence. But also during that whole scene when the guy crashes the ship into the tower, he's like, "They're everywhere. It's a siege."
Yeah, but
lack of experience.
What I will say is, just judging, from other Star Wars and from this political situation in general and experience and everything, the last thing you want to do is get on the radar of the people above you. And this is most certainly going to put you on their radar.
Do that.
So
that's right.
That is a big mistake.
Next thing you know, you get stationed at Hoth counting wampas.
Yeah, exactly. So,
All station counting one.
And which is what that inspector was trying to tell his lieutenant there, Captain Toole, in the first place. It's like, look, the last thing we want to do is get on anybody's radar. It's like
we're in a nice, quiet little.
Congratulations, the Empire just noticed you.
We're in a nice, quiet little border town, man. Don't rock the boat.
And he's yelling at him. He's like, "Sir, we need to get out of here."
Yeah, and once
he's going to be thrown under the bus really fast by the chief.
We need to peace out right now. The peace out needs to happen.
And it goes back to one of those situations where sometimes agent experience, it may seem like cowardice, or it may seem like the wrong way, but it's like this dude knows, man. He's been around the block for a while, and he's like, look, we're never going to solve this thing. We don't know what happened. It may have been that they were at fault in the first place, and
well, he called it.
We are going to end up on somebody's radar if we.
There's experience right there. That dude deduced precisely what happened.
Yeah,
lickety split. He's like,
in about 10 seconds.
He's like, that guy was a bully. I've known him. I'm surprised he hasn't been killed sooner. He pushed on the wrong guy.
Yeah.
So as this episode ends, there's a huge wink. So the episode ends with the juxtaposition of adult Kazin leaving on the ship he discovered Luthen had, and he was kind of amazed at its sophistication. And little Bow Wow Kazin, Casa, leaving with Mama Marva on their ship. And the huge wink was the sun, the glare, the flare, because that's how he dies. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen Rogue One. Sorry about that. But this is sloppy spoiler. So that's how he dies. And so he's looking into the sun in both shots. As a young lad getting off the planet, going with Mama Marva, and as a grown man going with Luthen, he's realizing, this has pretty much been my life. I'm, either being carted off or going off with strangers. And what is, what even is my life right now? Because you have those moments, what is this about? And then that huge wink to the audience that we know what it's about. We know how this is going to end, and you're kind of tuning up for your destiny because you are literally going to go out in a literal blaze of glory. And so this episode ends with a huge nod to that, which I thought was really, really clever. And it's kind
nice
of
bookend.
Yeah, it's kind of blinking, you'll miss it, but it's still kind of right in your face at the same time. So I like something when something is both subtle and blatant at the same time, because that's not easy to pull off. In terms of a writing perspective, it's not easy to be right in your face and yet be smooth with it. And that ending, pulled that off. So all in all, what I have to say is that I definitely want to see where it goes now. We have to see what Luthen is doing. We have to see what level, that the rebellion is at, what pocket he's with, what he started, what he's connected to, what his tech is, what their plan is. I mean, we know Rogue One and all that. But I'm sure this Luthen is too smart of a character, because he's proved he knows how to work with contingencies. Mm-hmm. He knows how to set them up when he walks into space. So I want to see what he and his group have done with that. Unfortunately, still not excited about seeing what Cassian does when he encounters them, but now I want to see them. And then, like I said, we know eventually where it goes with Rogue One, but I want to watch to see how the story plays out. I also want to watch to see the fate of the tools. You know how we have the Duel of the Fates movement? We need the fate of the tools music.
Oh,
right. That fate of the tools. Because you are now on the Empire's radar in the worst way. And if you didn't know, they have this dude in black armor that likes to choke people out when they get on his nerves. So
I don't think they even deserve that. He doesn't even deserve that.
No, you don't deserve attention from Vader, but I'm saying that's who
just a regular old firing squad will do.
Right. That's whose side you're on. So, you can't really rest in a situation like that. So all in all, they did enough in this episode to make us want to see how it goes forward. At least that's my thinking. And then we want to see how it concludes. And so, as always, and y'all know I said this from the beginning of Kenobi, as always, I just hope the payoff is worth it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we have these series that peak right in the middle. and we've, as a crew, watched enough stuff together to be able to kind of suss out when we've seen, because we did it with Moon Knight, when we could look at an episode and we say, okay, that was the peak. That was the best episode of this whole season, and things can only go down from there. I'm hoping I'm wrong here. I'm hoping that the peak, as this concludes, is even higher than what we experienced here. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I really am. But sometimes these series, they max out. You know, if it's like 6 episodes or 10 episodes, the 6 episodes, and they max out at 3, and then you got 2 filler and then a rush conclusion. If they max out at 10, then you might have your peak around 4 or 5, and then you're scratching your head and you're like, what happened to all the intensity? And then there's this rushed ending that tries to close up all the storylines very, very quickly instead of giving them the payoff that they deserve. So I'm hoping that is not the writing trajectory in this situation. I hope I am wrong. Okay.
Here's your fate of the tools there.
Oh my goodness. I didn't see that coming.
All right.
Wow. Okay, guys. Final thoughts. Start with Steve.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit more optimistic than you on this. It could very well be that it will end up that way, but I think it's just as possible.
When are you not more optimistic than me?
Okay, fair enough. But I was going to say that I think it's just as possible that whatever happens on the next episode could set up things that are better, because we're finally going to be dealing with the rebels more than likely. We're probably going to be dealing with more direct things dealing with the Empire, and Cassian, how he becomes the assassin he becomes in Rogue One. I feel like now we're starting to maybe start to get to the point. And on top of that, it's like a lot of the junk that went on in this planet is going to be left behind, because most of those characters are either dead or we're probably not going to see them except for maybe Bix. And if Bix is the only thing that we see from this planet going forward, okay, I can tolerate that if everything else is good. So it's going to depend on what the story is involving the Rebels and the Imperials. If that is good, if that comes together, then I think you maybe be able to forgive the first couple of episodes. This particular episode, I was able to enjoy it, I think, acknowledging that there are problems with it, and there are characters that are really stupid, and some people make decisions that are inexplicable and whatnot. But even with that, I think I was able to at least enjoy it enough to watch it. And I think that's definitely better than the first 2. So I'm hoping that it continues that trend. And now that we're going to get rid of the chaff, hopefully, moving forward, it might be a stronger story for that. But I guess we'll see.
Okay. Bracy, final thoughts.
Yeah, I'm fine with them leaving this world behind, leaving the flashbacks behind, leaving the sister behind, because if they don't care, I don't care. Because Luthien,
if you don't care, we don't care.
Luthien makes up for all the characters that I don't like. So I'm fine with it just being like Lone Ranger and Tonto here. As he learns the ropes and all that, mentor and mentee. So keep going in this direction. Let's see a satisfying end to the tools. I'd be happy to see that. But other than that, I'm ready to just go forward with Luthien and Cassian in this new direction. See them getting involved with the Empire, seeing him becoming the agent that we see in Rogue One. That's the real story.
2 out of 3 dentists agree. We need to see the end of the tools. Nemesis, what say you?
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Where's my Steve Austin meme? Yeah, I will say this. They finally piqued my interest. I want to see more. I want to see where this goes. However, I have this warning for them, and I'm warning them, the showrunners and everything. Don't do to me what you did with Book of Boba Fett, which is mislabel and mistitle this series. Yeah. The series better be about Cassian Andor and not be
Best Friend Squad
or Star Wars Rebels, the early years, or whatever.
I would be okay with this being the Luthien show, but other than that, no.
Yeah, it's like it could go a whole host of ways, but it's like if you are going to slap on the label right there, that's right behind DT Andor, then this better be a Cassian Andor show. You know, whether we needed it or not, whether we wanted it or not. You know, when you title something, the title needs to make sense. You know, you can't just say, "Oh well, you know, we use him as an excuse to make the show." It's like, that's fine. You use an excuse to make the show, but if he's not the central figure of the show, if he's not what the show is about,
Welcome Boba Fett again.
yeah, you know, use the character, fine, use the character. I don't care, but call it what it needs to be called. You know, so that's what I am waiting to see. But they piqued my interest. I want to watch more, and that's a positive development because I couldn't say that for the first 2 episodes.
So don't have him waking up in a back to tank in his drawers. Let's hear the end of the tools, and y'all better kill Bix because she need to die. And on that note, we will end this episode. Thanks so much to those of you that watched us live. Don't forget to check out our other offerings on Comic Crusaders. We got literally something for everybody. We got retro shows. We just did a whole month of horror movie review. Jeff has horror movie reviews on his tweet stream. Definitely follow him on Twitter because Jeff is a horror movie aficionado on Next Level stuff. Does research on the monsters, the makeup, all the different kind of stuff. You will learn a lot. And we've got a joint project going on under Nim's leadership, a project called Blood World that we are so excited about.
Yes.
We're
Blood
so
World is coming.
about that. We cannot wait for you all to see this. And so definitely follow the Blood World hashtag on Twitter, follow Rain Cross Press, and follow the 3 of us so you can keep up on the latest things. Nims, give a plug about when we're launching.
We are going to be launching in January for our campaign going forward. We're really excited about that. We got some other things that we're going to be developing. We got a pre-launch page. I will say right now that if you sign up on our pre-launch page for our newsletter, you will get a free piece of digital art on fulfillment, whether you buy the book or not. Whether you buy the book or not, you will get a free piece of digital art from us. So that is our commitment to you. Yeah, go check that out. I also say for Cinema Crusaders, we are giving everybody a bonus Halloween episode this week. We're doing Exorcist 3. Next week, I guess we're giving them even 2 weeks of bonus episodes, which is doing John Carpenter's Vampires. So we're going to be doing that. And then I think I may surprise the guys. After that, I want to expose everybody to the world of F1 racing movies. I think we're going to do the movie from Ron Howard, Rush. So,
I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cool.
Very good movie about the 1976 F1 title fight between James Hunt and Niki Lauda, completely based on a true story. Very good movie. So
Nice.
Awesome. All right. Thanks to all of you that are also watching this on replay. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and ring the bell so you know when new content is out. Me and this crew will see you next time on the next episode of Sloppy Spoilers.
see you later, everybody.